Reese, there isn't much time. They're coming.
Phil? Who are coming?
The monsters, Reese. They're almost here. I can hear them. There's lots of stomping and chanting and fo, bo, ko, mo, ro or something.
That'd be interesting to see. They're back for Series 12.
I don't think it's just them, though. I can hear more.
Maybe it's the rest of the Series 12 bad guys. I wonder if they're returning villains.
Reese, this isn't the time. Wait a minute. You know, that'd make a good idea for a video.
It does, doesn't it?
You wanna do that?
Now?
Yeah, I could probably squeeze it in.
Good point. Cue titles. Hi guys and girls, Gallifrey Forever 97. Welcome to today's video, which is a collab with YouTuber Philip Hawkins.
Hi.
Going for our top 5 monsters or villains we'd like to see return for Series 12 in celebration of the Jadoon returning. It seems like Series 12 would be more embracing the past more compared to Series 11, which is more of a standalone thing. So we're going to discuss our personal ones from the classic series and new series. But let us know in the comment section below what you like to see return from the whole back catalogue of Doctor Who. So my number 5 is the Sontarans. Last notably we had Strax, which kind of made a joke of the Sontarans a bit, which was fine, but obviously we've kind of had the whole Capaldi era without the Sontarans. And I'd love to see him go back to the classic form, a bit more taller, a bit more warrior-like. I think it'd be cool to actually do a kind of Dalek-style story. I know they've done obviously recently with Resolution, but kind of just having a single Sontaran just to kind of reinforce how one can be so dangerous. Obviously the great Sontaran classic stories with the Time Warrior and the Sontaran Experiment only had the one Sontaran. Look how much sort of punch they packed. I think there is some fun to have with them though, because even though obviously they are this kind of drone-like race, which are just sort of war in their mind, there are some great comedic moments I think they could really pick up on with the new companions and the Doctor. But I do feel like they need to kind of be re-evaluated in Doctor Who, as we've had obviously Strax, which is a great character, and really worked with the Paternoster gang. But we would really love to see a kind of new establishment, a new redesign, just to kind of reinforce how serious and how threatening they can be. Fun fact, Chris Chum actually wrote for them. They've had a brief cameo in Pond Life, which he wrote, which is a 5-part mini-series before Series 7 Part 1. So technically he has wrote them, but only for like literally like 10 seconds of screen time.
Yeah, the Sontarans definitely deserve another full go at Doctor Who. We haven't had one since David Tennant's era, a full Sontaran episode, so great choice there. My first choice is going to be the Sensorites. I think they've got an interesting visual aesthetic. I think they've got some interesting powers. I think it would be interesting to see what the modern series could do with them. Now, of course, we've had the Ood, who are hinted to be distantly related to the Sensorites. I think there's a line about them, the Ood sphere, from those episodes, being very close to the Sense sphere in terms of galactic geography, which is where the Sense sphere is where the Sensorites come from. You can see there's similarities with the designs as well, which is why I think it would be quite interesting to have an episode which has both the Ood and the Sensorites. I don't know what the timeline situation is between the two of them, but I think it could be quite interesting to have them both interacting with each other and the TARDIS team, and there could be some interesting politics. Maybe we can see the origins of how the Ood ended up as more of a slave race. Maybe the Sensorites had something to do with that. Something along those lines could be quite interesting.
Great number 5, Philip. I think it'd be great to kind of combine both the Ood and the Sensorites, which is kind of our new series take on the Sensorites coming together. What a cool idea. My number 4 is the Cybermen. Now, obviously, we've just had them recently in Series 10, but I feel like they kind of need a story on their own. I don't think the new series has been very kind with the Cybermen. Rise of Stone Age still is a good 2-part, I think. Since then on, they kind of have cameo appearances, and obviously in the Capaldi era, it was just kind of the Masters drone army, so they could do what they want. I mean, to be fair, what they did the Mondasian sign well enough of time was great. The Master story took over in the second half of Dr. Falls. But it'd be interesting to see what Christian would do this Cybermen actually, because with the Sonic Screwdriver and the Dalek, we've kind of these really unique creations with it being home built. And if they kind of continue that into Series 12, maybe the Cybermen kind of starting from scratch, sort of like a dying out race. You kind of see them like using scrap parts and then introducing a new design in the story. Big Finish do an absolutely stellar job with the Cybermen stories. They really seem to know how they work. And listening to a few audio stories of them in, I really hope they kind of take a pinch out of that. But yeah, I just want the Cybermen on their own because they have become very robotic. It would be nice to get a really good Cyberman epic story, a massive sort of 2-part Earthbound story, maybe even bring back Unit in if they've been like funded yet. But yeah, I'd just like to have a really solid story with the Cybermen.
Yeah, I think every iteration of the Doctor has to come up against both the Daleks and the Cybermen at least once in their tenure. I know it hasn't always happened, but I think those are the two villains that should happen with. Every Doctor should come up against them at some point. She's done the Daleks now. We need to see the Cybermen. I could wait till Series 13 for that. That would be fine, but if they turn up in Season 12, or Series 12, however you want to refer it to, that's good too. My next choice are the creatures from Vortis, the Zarbi and the Menabatra. Can't say that word. You know what I mean. They looked absolutely ridiculous. I've got the DVD cover here. I mean, look at them. Especially the Menabatra. How do you say that? Look particularly comedy, especially the way they moved and everything in the episode. Why I want these guys back is to give them a chance. You could do something interesting with them, but also, mainly, I want to see them visually redone and redesigned in a way that doesn't look comical and silly. I imagine the giant ants would all be CG these days. The kind of moth-like creatures, you could definitely do something a bit more interesting with them in terms of how they look, and look slightly less like a guy in a giant fancy dress costume. So mainly, I kind of want to see these guys again just to sort of do them justice, because I think their story was quite interesting. It was a very weird story, and I didn't like necessarily the pacing of it and various things. You can go back and look at my on my channel. I've got a Doctor Who rebrief all about it where we talk about it. But I think the overall idea with them was quite good. It's just the execution wasn't always there. So I'd quite like to see them maybe return, just to see them done right, because I think there's some potential there.
That'd be cool to see new designs of those two interpretations, but I think it could probably be a bit myth though. When he sort of announced as a Doctor, he kept talking about the web planet and that kind of design. He was sort of captured by that. So I'm sure it'll be a bit like, oh, why couldn't you do it for my era? My number 3 is the Crinoid. Season Doom, Tom Baker's story with Elizabeth Sladen. Final episode of season 13. It's a 6-part epic. It's one of my favourite Tom Baker stories and Cass's stories about this plant life where it basically sucks onto people and it's just going to take over the world. It is a really epic story with kind of espionage. The first 2 parts are set on the North Pole, and we kind of see a disastrous way of how that kind of went out. The next 4 parts are kind of like stopping it from taking over the world. So I think we could have some really cool design. There's some gruesome body horror in it. I don't know how they would do that actually. I think they have to tone back a bit on it. But maybe one of the companions was infected with the sort of Crinoid. And they were taken over, like, and the Doctor was like blamed for getting them in that situation. Obviously, in Series 7, it'd be kind of been this kind of like happy, everything great kind of vibe. I'd say with the kind of climate change stuff, because in the story it does kind of echo about all that stuff. Now in today's world, we really need to take action on climate change, which Series 7 kind of wants to do these real world type stories. So I think it'd be good to do like a climate change style story and being like, plant life has had enough. But yeah, it's one of those niche monsters that I actually love that story. I love to see him return with kind of modern new design, which will be a real threat for the Doctor and her friends.
Now, my next choice, and I am noticing a theme here, and that is that the first 3 of my choices have all been from the first Doctor's era. That's because I think that has the most ripe potential to add something to it, because it was so far in the past that the production values and stuff were very different then. They were obviously in the 80s and the 70s as well, but even more so in the 60s, and it was all black and white. I think they can benefit the most from an update. So the other one I would like to see from that era, from the black and white era, is the Vord from the frankly brilliant Keys of Marinus storyline. It's one of my favourite First Doctor stories. The Vord are these all-in-one bodysuit, all black, including a mask, and they've got this weird thing on the top of their heads. They've been in a couple of Big Finish stories as well, and I've very much enjoyed those. There's just something about them that I think there's a lot more to tell there. Now, some of the expanded media has gone on to hint that they eventually evolve into a form of Cybermen. I don't want to see that story particularly. I don't necessarily want it contradicted, but I'm not that interested in seeing that. I think that's been done in expanded media. I'd like to see a period from their history where they are still the Vord as we see them in Keys of Marinus. I think there's more that we can find out about them as a race, as a people, and the design is really good, and I think it's one of the few first Doctor designs other than the Daleks and the classic Cybermen. And to be honest, I wouldn't have even thought the classic Cybermen design would have translated well to the modern era until I saw World Enough in Time. But along with those, this one is one of those ones that absolutely could translate well in terms of costume design into the modern series. They'd be really interesting to see. They're kind of like these stealthy assassins as well. They arrive underwater in these pods and they sneak around, and yeah, I think they could be used quite well in the new series.
Nice number 3, Philip. My number 2 is Omega. Now, it's great when they bring back the Master, but I feel Omega could really do some damage. He is really like a godlike type being with a bit of a megalomaniac personality. So he debuted in The Three Doctors, and then he returned 10 years later with Arc Infinity with Peter Davison, and it's been mentioned since then, kind of name dropped and stuff like that. Now, the stuff with Gallifrey is kind of been just chucked to the sort of side, they're not dealing with whatsoever. I think it'd be really cool to see Omega kind of return, be resurrected. Obviously Rassilon's gone now, and I think it'd be really cool if Omega had sort of taken over Gallifrey, because obviously we haven't seen it since Hellbent and it's kind of not been mentioned. It'd be great so maybe the Time was getting in contact with the Doctor being like, please help us, we need to help take down Omega, and then they kind of deal with the clarification of like Gallifrey and kind of re-establish that. Even though it kind of has an unbalanced personality and that kind of waver, because he's such a powerful being, like any of his actions can have consequences. So I think it'd be an amazing big bad to reintroduce Gallifrey, like kind of a really badass helmet and costume. Now, I know the rights are with Bob Baker and Dave Martin because they were planning to do this like K9 film, which I don't think is happening though. So if you could kindly please give us back the rights to Omega to use with Jodie Whittaker, that'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yes, definitely need Omega back. I know people are on two minds of this, of whether or not we should find out more about the history of Gallifrey and the history of the Doctor. I like finding out little pieces here and there, you know, every couple of years finding out this just a bit more nugget of information. And I think there's more to explore with Omega there, and his history with Rassilon and stuff as well, so brilliant choice there. My next choice is the Sea Devils and the Silurians, both in the same episode. Again, it's been done before, I'd like to see it again. They are cousin species after all. But here's the thing, we have always seen the Silurians and the Sea Devils in the modern day, the era where the episodes are set, or in the future in some regards, like on the dinosaurs and the spaceship. What I want to see though is actually an episode set with them at their prime, back in prehistoric Earth, when it was ruled by the Silurians, the Sea Devils, and all these other reptilian subspecies and races. I want to see that, because we've never seen that on TV before. Again, I believe there are some books, some of the expanded media tackles this era, and I'm surprised that they've never done it. I don't know if it's a budget thing. When you've got an established villain and they've got this rich history, and you know at some point they ruled the Earth and they had the technology of having spaceships they could launch colonies out into space with, and that was all on Earth in our history, we should be exploring that, I think. So an episode set back when the Silurians ruled the Earth, back when the Sea Devils ruled the Earth, I want to see that. I think that could be really interesting.
The Sea Devils and Silurians in the prehistoric times, how cool would that be? I think they've kind of run their course with doing any further stories. So going back to their kind of original time where they originated, I think would be epic. So my number one choice is the Rani. Played brilliant by Kate O'Mara in the 1980s. When Missy was introduced into Series 8, a lot of people thought she was the Rani, but of course it turned out to be the Master, and she did a great job, the kind of megalomaniac, very unpredictable character. I think she had an amazing story arc in Series 10. With that storyline, I think they've kind of done what they need to do, and they can bring back the Missy or the Master in years down the line, but I really would love to see the Rani have a go, especially with this new female Doctor. Master Smith, she's very kind of childlike. She takes no fools. She only had 2 appearances with Mark of the Rani and Time of the Rani, the 6th and 7th Doctor era. So I think it'd be cool to see Christian do his own kind of take on a kind of arch nemesis to go against Jodie's Doctor, and I think the casting would be great. Let me know in the comments section below who you'd think. I've seen some stuff on Twitter about Jodie Comer who plays Killing Eve. She's very evil, but I think she'd play a better Missy, because I think she has that kind of like childlike nature, that kind of like, ooh, pop. She's like evil but bananas at the same time. But I think a really established actress which could reinterpret the character. I'm sure they pay homage to Kate O'Mara's kind of portrayal, but I think we have a sort of new take that could really manipulate the Doctor and her friends for series 12, having like a story arc, all the sort of traps are laid for the Rani to return. I think having the Rani to go up against Jodie's Doctor would really cement her Doctor. Like, there's been some great moments in series then with her, but it's like kind of like you want that cheering kind of moment of being like, yes, that's the Doctor. And with the Rani pushing the 13th Doctor to the edges of her resources, her mind, I think could be a really challenging thing for Jodie and the team.
I think there is space for the Rani to come back at some point. I think you're right. I'm not sure Series 12 is the place, personally, for me, but I definitely think she could return at some point. But for me, the Time Lord that I want to see back again is Rassilon. Rassilon's been left at a bit of a loose end after Hellbent. We saw him get exiled off of Gallifrey when the Doctor arrived, and in my opinion, those were some of the best bits of that episode. And as well as being the best bits of the episode, they were over far too quickly. Wrapped that up, shot him off somewhere, and it was over and done with. They needed much more time with Rassilon in that episode, I think. I think that would have made the episode so much better. So he's out there, presumably with a grudge against the Doctor from having been exiled off of his own planet. There's a revenge storyline in there somewhere. He's not just going to sit by and do nothing forever. He's got to turn back up at some point. He's probably regenerated again. It doesn't have to involve the rest of Gallifrey. It doesn't have to be back on Gallifrey. Out in the universe, the Doctor coming up against Rassilon. I think that could be a really epic storyline. That, in fact, he could be the season big bad. And in a similar way that Missy propped up throughout Series 8, saw a little hints that she was coming, I think we could do a similar thing with Rassilon, and that could be a season 12 plotline. No, you want the Rani for that. I think Rassilon would be a more interesting choice because we've got that loose end already there. Not really a loose end with the Rani at the moment, but I definitely think she could return at some point. Rassilon, I think, definitely. We need to find out what happens next in that story because we've got this loose end just dangling there.
I couldn't agree with your number one more, Philip. After they sort of shelved him after 15 minutes in Hellbent, I think he really needs to be redeemed on screen. So I hope you enjoyed watching our top 5 lists.
Feel free to let us know your top 5 in the comment section down below. And yeah, we'll see next year whether or not any of our wishes come true.
Hey, great idea. Maybe after Series 12 we could dust off the crossover machine and see what monsters and villains did return.
Oh, did I mention it travels in time too? Nah, I'm kidding. I just couldn't resist quoting Eccleston.
I guess I have to wait till 2020, like everybody else. As always, everyone, thank you very much for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Links to all the social medias in the description below. Me and Philip have also done a video on his channel talking about this Series 11 monsters that should return in the future. So check out the video in the description below or up here in the icon. Thank you for Philip for joining me on these 2 crossover videos. Whilst you're over there, please go subscribe to Philip's channel for more fun and awesome content and producing great videos around Doctor Who, Marvel, an array of other sort of TV and pop culture stuff. So Philip, do you want to say the bye-bye outro together?
See you in 2020. Bye-bye!
Philip? Philip?